Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Today is Friday, July 10th, and this is episode number 59. I'm your host, Rod Bloom, and with me today, returning to the podcast for his second engagement, is Chase Richardson. How are things going, Chase?
Excellent, Rod. Stuck in the middle of a pretty intense COVID-19 hotspot here in Orlando, but we're making do every day.
Yeah, it's getting bad a lot of places. It's not so good around me either. So yeah, it's kind of rough. I appreciate you jumping on with me. I had a guest cancel kind of last minute, so thanks for coming on. We've got a few things Browns to talk about. Before we do that, let's talk about what we're drinking. You were sharing with me that you're drinking some interesting stuff tonight, so I'm going to let you lead us off.
So it's called Guinness and Gun. It's like the original brand for Scotch whiskey barrel ale. So what they do is they'll age barrel ale in barrels that they use to make Scotch whiskey. It gives it a pretty interesting taste. I like it a lot. You can get it at most liquor stores, I would say. And usually what I'll do is I'll throw a couple of ounces of honey mead into it too, into a cup. It's something that my grandpa used to drink when I was a kid. It's a pretty smooth taste. I enjoy it quite a bit. It's a good all around drink, especially for a Friday night talking Browns.
Yeah. So where do you get honey mead?
Well, this specific brand, funny enough, is called Viking's Blood, which is kind of an intense name for an alcohol. Mm-hmm. But I got it just at like Total Wine, like just a wine store like that. It's about $18 for a bottle, and it's a pretty large size bottle, I would say. Mm-hmm. If you're into mead or if you've never had it and would like to try it, it's just wine made of honey for the most part. It's pretty smooth. I enjoy it a lot, especially for mixed drinks like this.
That sounds very interesting. I've never had mead, so I'm gonna have to try that. I'm gonna put that on my list. So for me, I put out a tweet and kind of asked everybody what they were drinking, and somebody came back with the Sweet Baby Jesus and suggested I drink that. So the peanut butter porter was sounding good, and I happen to have some peanut butter busted knuckle from the Quaffon Brewing Company of Nashville, Indiana, in my refrigerator. So I'm drinking one of these, and I don't know, probably a lot of people aren't familiar with that brewery, but if you've been to Nashville, Indiana, you probably are, and they brew all their own beers. When you go to there's 3 or 4 restaurants in Nashville that serve this brewery and serve beers from this brewery, and this is my favorite. Not just because it's peanut butter. I think it has the best taste of all their beers, but a lot of their beers are highly carbonated, so they have a good flavor, but it's almost a little too much carbonation for me, and I don't really feel that this porter is that way, and it's got a great peanut butter flavor.
Okay, I mean, I love peanut butter, yeah.
It's right up there with the Sweet Baby Jesus. I don't know, the flavor, I hate to say it, the flavor might be a little bit better.
Wow.
So I highly recommend it if anybody's over in that area, or if you see this beer from the Quaffon Brewing Company. I don't even know if they sell this outside of the city, but good stuff. So, Chase.
Yes.
What have you been up to since last time we talked? It's been several months.
Yeah, man. I mean, you're familiar with my lovely girlfriend Jamie, obviously.
Yeah.
Her and I signed a lease for our first apartment together, so we're very excited about that.
Great.
I start law school in approximately 3 weeks here at Florida A&M in Orlando.
Nice.
That's kind of been a little bit of a mess because of the situation. So right now the current plan is a hybrid format, about half online and half in person. And keep things as online as possible to, avoid contact with others. So I think that's definitely going to be a difficult first semester, especially because everyone keeps telling me, your first semester of law school is the hardest, just because of the adjustment period. But, if other people can do it, I feel, as though I can do it. So I'm just trying to keep a positive outlook on it. But other than that, furniture shopping, I know, you're probably familiar with the joys of furnishing a home.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somewhat.
just you like this and she doesn't, and she really likes this, but maybe it's not exactly to your taste. But I usually just leave it to her, as to not rouse any unnecessary arguments.
Well, Chase, my wife and I are at the point where we're on our second marriage, and we bought a house big enough to put all of our crap in, and our youngest is going to be a senior in high school next year, so we're planning to downsize in a year or so. That's the plan right now. We're planning on getting rid of a lot of the furniture we have because we've either had it or people gave it to us. And
Right.
we're actually going to buy some of our own furniture that we're going to pick out because a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
it's either just been around for a long time or it was never ours to start with. So we're going to be doing that, but it's a little ways down the road yet.
That first IKEA trip is it's a heck of an experience, I'll tell you. Your first IKEA trip with your significant other.
Oh yeah, yeah. IKEA is a cool place, but yeah, um, yeah. You need to have some endurance built
Oh
up.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, I was kind of wondering um, you were already accepted into law school and everything before COVID, before all this hit, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was.
So how does law school work? Um, did you graduate? Did you have to apply before you graduated
So
with
it
your?
works it works pretty much like any other like graduate school experience, like or even your undergraduate degree. Like when I applied first for college, like it was early on in my first semester of my senior year of high school. So
Okay,
when they're looking at your applications, they'll look at it based on that, and then they'll conditionally accept you, pending your final transcripts and everything. So I
okay.
was accepted, and they said, obviously you're accepted with this amount of scholarship money pending, you don't fail out of your final semester or whatever. So yeah, they'll do it like that, and then from here, full time, it'll be 3 years of graduate level study, and then I will be a JD, and then I'll have to sit for the bar exam.
And is there a test you take
There
after
is, there
college?
is. It's called the LSAT. I took it
Also,
my junior year of college. I took it 3 times over the course of a year. And
okay.
it's you can think of it just like the ACT or the SAT, except it is a little bit more like riddles and critical thinking. They're really trying to ascertain your level of problem solving, I would say, and your reading level. It's a lot of it was honestly when you come in, you may be expected to be like, oh, like legal questions. No, it was really a lot of riddles, funnily enough.
Interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
my one of my sons is between his junior and senior year, and he's pre-med, so he just got his score for his MCAT,
Yep.
and so
Yep.
he's getting ready to apply to uh, to med schools now, and he's got his whole senior year in front of him, and the all this COVID stuff's kind of made it kind of a mess because he had to wait an extra what two months I think to take his MCAT. He
Yeah.
was ready to take it, and then
Yeah.
they pushed it out. So he had been studying, and then he had to find new stuff to study, and he had to keep studying. And then they changed the format. They changed it from an 8-hour test, I think, to a 5-hour test. Um, it it ended up working out for him, but it was not a lot of fun.
I had
So
been really grateful to have gotten it done before all this happened. because they did change the formats, and there were one or two tests that got canceled, and a lot of law schools have had to kind of adjust and move their acceptance periods back or change to a rolling admission basis because not everyone had their scores.
Yeah.
And colleges in general, I read, have been having to do a lot of that just because people just aren't enrolling in college right now because either parents are scared to send their kids away or people just don't have the financial means right now to send their kids to college.
That's true. I mean, honestly, I hadn't even thought about that factor. I mean, because, our son's, he's going into his fourth year. You're not going to stop there, and
Right.
And the youngest has a year, until he goes to school. So
I mean, I couldn't imagine right now having to, approach my mom or my grandparents and ask them to help me afford the first year of college just because it's just been so crazy with, everyone's financials. And my mom works at a hospital, but even she has had to have her hours reduced. Hospitals are suffering pretty greatly right now because a lot of their income depends on, ER visits and people visiting the hospital. But I think people are much less inclined to visit hospitals right now because they don't want to come into contact with it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty.
For sure, and I mean that applies to the Browns too, as you and I both know.
It does, and that's a great segue. Very very professional, Chase. Let's talk about a couple of the Browns topics. I mean, we're going back a little ways here, but Olivier Vernon, the Browns restructured his contract. What was your thought before we even get into the numbers when you heard they were restructuring his contract?
Well, I think it was kind of a natural climax to kind of the saga with him and all the talking points. Will he be traded? Will they move him to make room for Clowney? Will they do this and that? I think it was a good thing for both sides. I think he, when healthy, is a very productive player. I think he can be a really good player for the Browns. I wasn't personally super excited about him getting that kind of money given his injury history and productivity last year, but I think that this was a really shrewd move, and it kind of lends itself more and more to my thoughts that I already had about Andrew Berry, and that's that he was shrewd in a business sense, but he also was willing to do, what I think is right to field a consistent roster, of quality.
Yeah, I mean, he's really thinking ahead with this move. It not only frees up some money for this season if they have an opportunity to make another move, because the whole thing with Clowney, I think if they would have signed Clowney, I think they would have just cut Vernon. Honestly, they could have cut him with no money out of pocket, I think, up until the season started or something like that, and it would have saved them that $15.5 million. So I think that was the plan. So now they keep Vernon, and he's guaranteed $11 million with signing bonus and the salary and a workout bonus, and then he has $2 million in incentives. So they saved, even with the incentives, they've saved $3.5 million, or $2.5 million if he gets the full incentives, up to $4.5 million. So so it frees up some money, and he's going to be gone after this season. So that money's going to be freed up after the 2020 season, assuming everything we talk about is assuming they play this year.
Yeah, I mean, and it helps. I mean, Myles Garrett is going to sign a mega extension. I mean, we know that he's going to be making money with the likes of Aaron Donald and Clowney before his contract was kind of more up in the air. But he's going to be making money like a premium pass rusher because that's obviously what he is. Fans love Myles still, obviously.
Yeah.
So I mean, I have long been a proponent to pay Myles Garrett whatever he wanted. I think he's the kind of guy you can build a defense around for 6-7 years.
Yeah, I think so. So what's your vision, kind of looking into the future, next season? assuming the 2020 season goes down, Vernon's gone. What do you think the Browns do at that other defensive end spot?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple options. I think what they will do is bring in someone cheap as a free agent, and then I think they'll probably look to the middle of the draft to kind of bolster that spot. They got their bookends taken care of, obviously with Wills and Conklin. So I think the O-line is less of a concern. So I think if you look ahead even to the next draft, I think they'll probably go with either a corner or some kind of premium pass rush type guy or a linebacker. They're definitely going to go defense, I would think, heavy next draft. The offense is pretty taken care of, in my opinion. I do think after this season, either Odell or Jarvis is probably going to be, gone in whatever form that takes. I think Baker has better chemistry with Jarvis, so I think that kind of lends itself to maybe Odell being on the move. But fact of the matter is, they're not going to have the cap, to, I don't think, furnish all, this many premium wide receivers, nor should they. I mean, I think that premium wide receivers are a luxury, especially for a young quarterback like Baker. But now that the O-line, I think, is, a little bit more steady, I think that you could invest that money elsewhere, linebackers, maybe another corner.
Well, especially when you look at the kind of offense the Browns are looking at running, where you're expecting to be run heavy, tight end, passes to the tight end a lot. Sure, you still need wide receivers, but you're not playing an offense where you're trying to go down the field constantly.
Yeah. And that's not to say that, Stefanski hasn't dealt with more than one premium wide receiver before. I mean, obviously,
well, sure,
Diggs and Thielen. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a better wide receiver duo. But I just don't know that they're going to have, the money to furnish Odell and Jarvis, when you have to bolster. I mean, especially the linebackers. Like I personally don't like the Browns linebackers as they are now. I think that if there's a weak point on the roster on paper, I think that's probably it.
We want to thank our sponsor, tshirthooligan.com. This month's t-shirt giveaway, in order to be eligible, you need to follow at ClearRodB, at Hooligan T-shirt, and at the Browns Blitz. Follow those 3 accounts and shoot a DM to at ClearRodB, and we will draw a winner near the end of July for the T-shirt. So you can be like Jeremy Bonham and win a free T-shirt. If you can't do that, if you're listening on The Grueling Truth, just shoot me an email and we'll enter you that way. So send that to rod.bloom@gmail.com. Back to the action. Yeah, they're missing a piece or two. Really, just it's the youth of the position. The guys they have may end up being good players potentially, but it's youth and potential at this point.
Yeah,
is what it is. So you really, it's hard to go into the season feeling strongly about the linebackers.
Yeah, and I mean, the NFL's changed, and this. I mean, obviously, you've been watching football for a while, so but like linebackers have changed, especially middle linebackers. It's not really necessarily their job anymore to sit, 2 yards off the line and hit the running back 25 times a game or anything like that. Like, you really do need a modern type linebacker, someone that can move with tight ends and someone that can cover. Right. And I look up and down the roster, and I don't see that. Like, I think Mack Wilson is uber athletic, but I haven't seen a ton of skill from him as far as covering guys. I mean, I think he's definitely played up and beyond his expected role as a 5th-round pick, but I think that early in next draft, I think you'll definitely see the Browns look for an athletic type linebacker to come in and fill that hole.
Yeah, I think my money would be on that right now, on that, or I don't know if they would go 1st round defensive end, because I think it's kind of the same thing as what you're saying with the wide receivers and that. I don't know that you want to sink all this money and all this capital into, one area. You kind of
Yeah.
need to spread some of it around a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, it also depends on the draft class you're looking at.
Oh yeah, I mean it'll depend on who falls, and anything can happen in the draft. But I would say that their money will probably go towards bolstering the linebacker unit, and then probably maybe another premium, corner type guy in the second and third round. Because I think that as much as I like Denzel and Greedy, I mean there have obviously been health issues there between the two of them.
You can never have enough. You can never have enough good corners.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you're drafting and there's a good corner sitting there, you almost feel like you have to take them.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. For me, it kind of depends how the season plays out, because I feel like the linebackers are going to be a weakness, and then we're going to see. We're going to see Vernon leave, and who knows what also happens. So we're going to feel like the defense needs to be addressed primarily in the draft, but
Yeah.
who knows?
I mean, I would even think that there could be some concerns with the back end of the defense, in terms of the corners and the safeties, because I like Delpit, I like Greedy, I like Denzel, but should one of them go down, I mean, what are you looking at as far as depth? I mean, that was an issue at several points last year, when Denzel tweaked his hamstring, or I think Greedy hurt his elbow at one point, and then we were out there and it's like, who are we looking at? And I think
they have a little depth, but not a ton.
I don't think there's really a guy that you could look at, if one of your one or two corners got hurt, and you would say, I trust that guy to not get blown up every other play.
Well, yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. The youth.
Yeah.
From really beyond the defensive line.
Yeah. No, I agree for sure.
There's
and frankly, I could even see Sheldon Richardson, maybe not being here past this year or next.
I'd have to look at his contract. I mean, didn't he sign for 4 years? Or was it 3?
I want to say it was 3, but I would definitely have to double check.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think he'll play his contract out. But yeah, it depends how it was structured and everything. You're right. So you just never know, because the Browns signed some other with in the draft and free agency. They added a couple other defensive tackles. So know.
It seems like Sheldon Richardson actually does have a potential out after this year. He doesn't. There's only about $1.5 million in dead cap if they were to cut ties after this year. So
that's interesting.
We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, well, I trust Andrew Berry. He's done a nice job of So it's going to be interesting to see how he handles things from season to season. And I'm saying that because I don't know. I have a feeling he's going to be around for a little while.
I like him. I mean, I think he's super, super bright. I think he's personable. I think he is everything that I like in a GM. And I kind of like to lean younger in terms of coaches and GMs. And that applies as far as my college football fandom too. Like, I love Ryan Day. I'm an Ohio State fan.
Yeah.
Josh Heupel, who coaches UCF, was the quarterback for Oklahoma years ago, and he's not really, too up there either. And I think they're both excellent young minds. I think that leaning younger, especially for coaches, but also even GM, like I think it's a positive for your organization.
Well, it is if you keep them around for a little while and let them grow.
For sure.
So let's hope that that's the main point of this whole thing, because I've talked about it a lot on this podcast, but I'm not that. I think the Browns should do well this season, and win some games. But geez, if they go 7-9 or 8-8, and I hear people that want to fire Stefanski, I'm gonna I'm going to go nuts.
I think letting your coach help hire your GM is a positive. Like, I think it worked really well for San Francisco, and we see how that worked out. I think Kyle Shanahan's a genius. I really like Kyle Shanahan as a coach.
Yeah.
But everything I've heard from Stefanski, everything I've seen from last year's Vikings offense, everything I've heard from Andrew Berry, it all sounds really good. And that's not to say that things haven't quote unquote sounded good before, but it all sounds really put together and impressive. And, I don't want to use the word academic, but it almost does sound more academic when they talk. Like it is very, very pleasant. And I think that they're not vague when they talk, which is something I also
It's
appreciate.
very well thought out. They don't,
I think,
they have a plan to
everything they
everything they're
say.
doing.
Mm-hmm. Everything is set out. Stefanski and Barry have a plan. They say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. This is our philosophy. And that makes me feel better as a fan because, the last one or two regimes has really been, vague. And there was everything that, went on with the regime before Kitchens. And that seemed almost too analytical. A lot of people would say, but this has been, I think, very pleasant in terms of kind of a fresh start and in a direction that I personally appreciate.
Well, there's a difference between thinking stuff out, thinking about stuff and having a plan and overthinking and just, and trying to be smarter than everybody else and saying, no, we can't do it that way. That's how somebody else does it. Just come up with a plan and do it a smart way. And I think that's what Andrew Berry and these guys are doing. And that's all you need to do.
I mean, I think it's so perfect. Like I look at the way that they used personnel in Minnesota last year, and it just you almost couldn't write it better. A quarterback who likes play action, a running back who thrives off of wide zone schemes. Two tackles who are athletic and who can move, wide receivers who can really get off the line and, create some separation. Like I think that you couldn't have an offense tailored personnel wise better to Stefanski. So I'm hopeful for that reason.
Yeah. So what formation do you expect to see most of the time? The highest percentage of plays, which offensive players do you expect to see on the field?
I mean, I expect a lot of two tight ends and a fullback. As weird as that sounds in, the year 2020, I expect a lot of two tight ends and a fullback. And I was a little bit more hopeful before the Njoku news came out in terms of what we were going to have, but I like Harrison Bryant. I've seen Harrison Bryant play live. I like Carlson. I think that there are some options. I think it harms their depth a little bit with Njoku, obviously, announcing that he wants to be moved. But I like Austin Hooper. Like, I don't think that there's, outside of Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz, like, I don't think that there's really... There might be three tight ends that you could unequivocally say, might be better than Austin Hooper in the NFL.
Yeah, George Kittle.
Yeah, that's probably the three.
Those three guys. Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with you. So I'm glad Austin Hooper's in town. The thing with David Njoku is the Browns are kind of making it sound like they don't really care. I think they might just keep him in Njoku.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if I'm him. Do we think that it's a matter of touches? His next I mean, we know everyone's always trying to get to the second contract. Do we think it's going to be? I'm just not sure because when I look at the usage, the second tight end in Minnesota last year had, I think, pretty okay numbers. Like I know Njoku's career is kind of up and down. Like I know his rookie year especially was probably the high point thus far for him. But I mean, I would
I think
think if I were David, I would look at who got brought in and say, oh well, this is going to be good for my career. Even if you didn't see yourself in Cleveland beyond your rookie deal, an offense that utilizes tight ends this much, even if you're not going out and catching 7 passes a game, I would think that I would look and say, well, I'm going to be on the field, X number of snaps percentage wise, and I can show my skills in other ways.
right, and the Browns picked up his 5th-year option, so he's set to make 1.7 million this year, around 6 million in 21.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm trying to figure out. I think the Browns wanted him around this season and next season. It's kind of the thought as Harrison Bryant, develops. If you look at the other tight ends on the roster, if the Browns are going to trade Njoku and have Harrison Bryant as the number 2, then you got Carlson and Farrell Brown, and I've heard people talk about Nate Whiting.
Yeah.
That some people like him. Interesting thing about him, I didn't know the Browns, and probably none of this is guaranteed, but the Browns signed him to a 3-year contract.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they liked him, and the thing with Harrison Bryant is when I kind of envisioned him in this offense, he's not a big guy. Like, he's a tight end, but he's not, he went to FAU and he was the center of their offense, but he's not by any means like a massive tight end. Like, I don't think he's going to be great blocking. I kind of almost envisioned him as a hybrid flex fullback kind of guy. Like, maybe you stick him back there and then you can, shift him out to run a route, or maybe you have him chip block for a second and then you push him out into the flat and have him be utilized that way. He did a lot of that at FAU. So I almost think if you move David, you have to maybe move Carlson up to the second tight end spot at least for blocking assignments.
Well, a lot of people like Farrell Brown too.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it'd be some kind of mixture. It'd be interesting to see what the Browns would do, who they would keep. It's going to be interesting to see who they keep regardless.
I think someone might come open after camp cuts that they like or something like that. But I think in terms of physical tools, obviously you're not going to replace David Njoku, and he hasn't necessarily been, all pro blocking or anything. But even just as a decoy on 2 tight end sets, like, I think that's a loss that they could definitely feel.
Yeah. Either way, I don't think he's going to be here, past the 21 season more than likely, and that's probably when Harrison Bryant's going to really hopefully find his role, I would say, at that point, and then you've got your 2 main guys, and then your third guy is just a blocking tight end, I would say. So
and I like Harrison Bryant a lot. I was super ecstatic when they took him, just because I knew that was going to be a need coming up potentially, and I have seen him play personally, and I kind of knew what he was going to bring to the table. He's got super soft hands in terms of being a wide receiver. The guy catches everything thrown at him.
Mm-hmm.
He's excellent. I love Harrison Bryant. I just tight end though is such a difficult position in the NFL to master, and I think it probably a lot of people would say one of the 3 hardest positions to master. I would say is being a modern tight end, just because you have to know the route tree, know all the things a wide receiver has to do, but then you also have to always be refining your blocking, because you're kind of a 2-way player in that way.
Right, and then they ask these guys to line up as a fullback sometimes too.
Yep. And so I was happy that, to have a year or 2 with Njoku there, just for him to kind of acclimate. But if they move him after this year and Brian has to step in, I hope he can. Yeah. But I know that it's difficult, so, we'll have to wait and see.
I don't know. When I've talked about this a little bit on Twitter and just talked to people, there's people kind of standing up for all of these tight ends. The Browns have 6 tight ends on the roster, and people like all 6 of these guys
Well, I guess
this
that's
season.
good. I guess that's good then, right?
I guess. I mean, not that they're all superstars, but that they all have their good points. I mean, you can say good things about Carlson, and people. I've had a couple people talk about Farrell Brown. I don't think Farrell Brown really impressed anybody with his ability to catch the football last season. But
I really liked Carlson last season. Like I thought he went pretty underutilized as far as what I saw from him when he was on the field contributing.
yeah, he made some nice plays. He's obviously has some ability. We know he's a smart guy, so it always helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
I mean,
those guys are both on 1 year deals right now.
yeah.
Carlson and Brown. Um, so Bryant and Whiting, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think things just got so messed up last year with Kitchens and everything else that went on, and there was so much excitement around what we saw at the end of the year, the season previously, and they got away from everything that made the offense good. Before that, I mean, as you're well aware, they kind of got away from everything that made Baker stand out or it helped the offense excel. And I don't think it was necessarily a great showcase of everything that the tight ends could be. Like I think they put Pharaoh Brown in kind of some precarious spots, and Baker wasn't exactly at his best. And maybe that wasn't all on Baker, but some of it is on him. So I don't know if we really had a good chance to see everything that those guys could be. So I'm excited just to kind of see what they can do in an offense that I think is built for tight ends a little bit more.
Yeah, you make a great point. It's hard to grade most people or most players based off last season.
Agreed.
It really is. We know that, other than Nick Chubb.
Yeah, I mean, what are our known quantities at this point? It's like Joel Batonia, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, and like Jarvis. Like that's like all the known quantities at this point.
Yeah, we know the wide receivers. I mean, those guys both did great in a season that wasn't great. So imagine what those guys can do, in a season where Baker has a good line, a better line and a better game plan for lack of a better term.
Yes, agreed.
So there's been a lot of talk about kind of coming out today about the 2020 NFL season, kind of what's going to happen and things that still need to be worked out. It seems like a lot of this is a mess, Chase. It really does.
I mean, things are just so unpredictable at the moment. Like I feel like every few days we're getting some other piece of news. Like I remember maybe about a month ago, it felt like every day we were getting some new symptom that they were tying back to COVID. Like I remember the day that they told us that, if you lose your sense of smell and taste, all of a sudden, like probably go get tested. And that was so crazy to me that that would happen. And I saw some people on Twitter even talking about they've recovered and their sense of taste still isn't back. So that's like really scary to me, But yeah, I mean, everything's so spooky right now, especially in Florida. I mean, as you know, like things are getting like really bad in a lot of parts of the South, Texas, South Carolina, Georgia. You're just seeing a lot of cases pop up all of a sudden. And I think it does. I mean, I think it does. Like we've seen everything the NCAA is doing. Like I think it really does jeopardize the season. And I think maybe you have a little bit more control in the NFL to the point where you can kind of put every team on the same regimen, and say this is what we're going to do. But like I personally think that we're not even going to have college football this season.
That's that's kind of the direction things seem to be going. The college football and probably high school, that a lot of this stuff's going to get canceled.
Well, I mean, when you're talking about professionals, I mean, obviously you can say, well, you're going to have to be paid. Do you want to do this? And they can say yes or no. But when you're talking about college kids, like, you really can't. Like, I know that the money is really important for the universities and the other athletic programs, but you can't put these kids at risk, And especially, like, I think when you're talking about the NCAA, I think if you get to a point where, a school doesn't have kids on campus, but then they say, oh, but we're going to have the football players on campus, I think you open a whole other can of worms, in terms of your amateurism model, because you're at that point admitting, these aren't regular students. And that's kind of what the whole NCAA is based on, is that they're quote unquote student athletes, even though we kind of know that has been stretched over the years.
Yeah. So J.C. Treader says, this was a quote from him. I think this is from earlier today, or actually maybe a couple days ago. He says, wear a mask and socially distance if you want to see football and all sports come back. It's more or less telling people in the country to do their part because the NFL doesn't exist inside a bubble.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the players don't feel safe right now. I think the thing that kind of caught me today, and I'm switching over to baseball here, but Buster Posey said he's sitting out the season. I think he and his wife either just had twins or adopted twins, and he said it was an easy decision for him. He goes, I'm not playing this year.
Well, I mean, Buster's made his money. I mean, I think
he doesn't need the money. No,
I mean, I think that at that point, you almost look at yourself in the mirror and you would, am I going to endanger my new baby, potentially for, to go play baseball? It's so precarious to me, because sports are super important for American society and Americana, but at the end of the day, when you're talking about the toll, the human life, like, I think we're up to 130,000 deaths nationwide now that are tied to COVID. So, I mean, I get it. I absolutely get it. If you're an athlete and you say to yourself, well, I have children, or I have a wife, or, maybe my mother lives with us, or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, my father-in-law is a cancer survivor with a compromised immune system. So, we try our best to be careful.
Yeah, I mean,
and there's a lot of people in that situation. So yeah, you're trying to be safe for those people, even if you think you would be okay if you got this thing.
Yeah, and I tell people, and I know you probably don't know this about me, Rod, but I actually am a cancer survivor. So Jamie and I, we've had to exercise an abundance of caution. I haven't seen my family in, close to 4 months, because my mom works in a hospital and my grandparents are elderly. You know what I mean? Like, I've had to kind of personally isolate myself and make accommodations with my job, and even before my graduate school adopted a hybrid model, like, I was going to have to make accommodations because I can't go out right now. You know what I mean? Like, I do live with a compromised immune system, and there are people, actually a friend of mine who I met in treatment several years ago, he recently passed away from COVID because he was also living with a compromised immune system, and he got it. And it really, people really have to understand the toll that it can take on your body if you're not a young, healthy individual. Like, I know there are tons and tons and tons of people who are recovering with no problem, but that's just not the reality for everybody. So it is really important to do your part and wear a mask. And, sports aside, like, I really hope that, we can kind of use this moment as a country to kind of come together and, do our part for our neighbor.
One last quick pause before we wrap the podcast up. Check out our sponsor, Skippin' Stones, on both Etsy.com and Go Imagine. One shop at each location. The shop at Etsy.com now offers free shipping on orders over $35. Both shops you can find handmade stone, shell, and sea glass jewelry, pebble art, framed poetry, yoga bracelets, and there's now hair accessories and personalized Sportsplex, free shipping on qualifying orders through Etsy.com. Go Imagine donates their profits to charity. So take your pick. Two great places to check out. Now back to the action. I mean, that's what we should be doing.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, it's and and I don't do politics, Chase, but unfortunately, it's turned into such a political issue versus just an issue of we need to do this for each other.
It's certainly disheartening for me, especially, obviously, to see people politicize public health. Like, I think that's pretty beyond the pale. But like you said, we won't do politics, or we won't discuss it on here, in too much depth. But I do think it's a shame. I should say it's definitely a shame.
Yeah, I agree. And what did J.J. Watt say? He said something like if they're wearing masks in football, he's not playing, or something. I think that was the effect.
He said that, we're there to play football. Like, I'm not doing anything crazy. Like, I'm going to play football. And then someone else said, I saw a few days later, someone else said, I'm pretty sure J.J. Watt wouldn't be wearing a mask. And then J.J. Watt chimed in and said, I'm pretty sure you shouldn't speak for me. I wear a mask at all times, just not when I'm playing football.
Okay. So I must have misunderstood what he said. So, well, I think the NFL has a long ways to go to kind of figure this thing out.
I'm certainly pessimistic given everything I've seen with the NBA. Even,
mm-hmm.
You're talking about more guys. Number one, you're talking about more players. You're talking about 55 guys per roster.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be really hard outside of some UFC-style island to get a season with no stops and no problems, because I think, every time you play a game, you're going to see, the Vikings had 3 positives, or the Giants had 6 positives, you know what I mean? Like, so it's if there is a season, I think it's going to be kind of definitely not normal. Definitely not normal.
Well, the statistics are what can get you, and I'm going from memory here, which is a terrible thing. I don't have it in front of me, but the stats on the baseball teams right now. How many? There are what? Are there 30 Major League Baseball teams?
I believe so.
So there's 30 Major League Baseball teams, and so I saw the stats. I don't know. I don't even remember if it was on the news or on Twitter or where I saw it. But so many guys are positive right now. Okay. There are guys who have tested positive on 28 of the teams. But they're still saying it's only like 1 or 2% of the players, which that math doesn't even work out for me.
Well, I think right now they're operating on 60-man rosters. So I think that
could be then.
Yeah, so I think that they could,
or closer to it, anyways.
Yeah, but even that, 28 teams, there's at least one guy. You know what I mean? You just recently saw the news of the Buckeyes. I'm sure, like, they had however many cases come back, and they had to shut it down. And Clemson and LSU had some godly.
You get one guy, and that one guy's been around the other guys, right?
Yeah, and it's the same thing. LSU and Clemson had like those ungodly numbers. Like, they came back like, 30 of our players have it. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah. For me, the issue is not that one person's going to get this during the season. It's that one person is going to test positive, and they will have been around everybody on their team. They will have played another team the week before.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it's so hard outside of contact tracing, like, which is what they do in some of the Asian countries in Europe, but that's so hard to do. You know what I mean? Like,
how do you are you going to quarantine everybody in the NFL that's been in contact with one person that gets it? Because you're going to be shutting teams down entirely.
Well, that's what the NFL. Oh, that's what the NBA is doing. Is they're just taking everybody, putting them in quarantine for 2 weeks, testing them every few days, and then once everyone's cleared, they're gonna stick them in. They're gonna stick them in this more isolated bubble, and they're gonna make them play for a month. But you can't do that with the amount of guys I think that are in the NFL. Like I think the cost alone would almost be prohibitive.
Yeah,
there's guys in different situations. There's guys with new babies and their wives and everything else.
You're talking. By the time you put coaches and stuff in, you're talking like 2,000 people in the NFL probably.
Yep, coaches. Everyone you'll need to film the games. You'll need cameraman, audio technicians.
Yeah, it's 2,000 people easily because it's over 1,500 players.
Yeah, I just think the cost alone of furnishing that, in terms of hotels for 2 months and testing and employing, a contractor to do all your blood work, like the costs are almost prohibitive on their own to, do all that. So I struggle to see any kind of normalcy return to sports until we get some type of vaccine.
It kind of feels that way. So, I really want sports back.
Oh, Rod, you don't even I was watching the basketball tournament, that yearly tournament, and that was really the first sports that I've gotten outside of European soccer and Korean baseball. And I was just like, wow, this is nice to just sit and drink a beer and watch basketball. The worst Cavs team of my lifetime is probably the team right after LeBron left, and I would take 82 games of that tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've been watching just old football games, pretty much whatever's on TV. Old World Series games, old football games, old sports movies.
Well, that was nice for the first month and a half. We got all these classic games on all of a sudden. That was kind of nice, but now I'm just kind of burnt out on it. I just want new sports.
Yeah. Well, I can't blame you at all. It's been rough. So I was talking on Twitter about how if the football season's not played, how can we simulate this best to kind of make it fun for everybody? I had somebody tweeted a picture of just a great electric football game, but it was a Browns electric football game, and they put a lot of extra work into it, and I'm telling you, I'm jealous because it's really nice.
I think the best way to do it would be to get a comprehensive list of the Browns experience. So what we'll do is we'll compile 16 games, 7 games that the Browns win, and 9 games that they lose, and we'll just every week as a community we'll throw one of those on, and we'll just watch it together. We'll rewatch all the classic moments.
Just old games?
Yeah, just old games. I think that would be the best way to do it. As a community, just everyone decide this is what we're going to watch, and then everyone just start it up around the same time, and we'll just live tweet it like it's a real game.
Nobody came up with that. But that's pretty good. I'm thinking like Madden and stuff like that, and then putting the stats out and all this stuff. And,
yeah, you could do that too. You could do it all, honestly. There's any number of things that you could do. Maybe we throw on, I know people were, getting really into old Cavs games. I recently rewatched the finals when they beat Golden State.
Mm-hmm.
And that was pleasant. I'm pretty young, but that's probably the seminal sports moment in my life as far as my fandom. So it was nice to kind of relive that.
There's really nothing in my life that tops that either, Chase.
I know that's what my grandpa keeps telling me. He's like you and me got to have the same moment.
Yeah. I'm waiting for another one, but yeah, so far that's the one.
Probably that, and then the 2015 Sugar Bowl, Ohio State over Alabama. Those are probably my my two favorite experiences.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, some of the Ohio State ones, yeah, but just for Cleveland, yeah, it's the Cavs because we just haven't seen a Browns or an Indians championship.
I did recently rewatch the Indians and the Cubs series, and I think that is just so fantastic. It's great. It has great rewatchability. Obviously, up until extra innings of the last game, but up until that point, at least.
Game. Man, I thought they had that game.
Oh, you should have seen me when Rajai Davis hit the home run. Like, I thought, wow, that's it. They're gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then the rain delay comes, obviously, and then, history from there.
Yeah. That was rough, but that was after the Cavs win, so it kind of took a little bit of the sting out of it, but
yeah, it did for sure. I mean, as Cleveland, if we can get one in here, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get another one soon. But.
Oh yeah, hopefully.
So Chase, your Twitter handle's at ChaseKR19.
Yes, that's me.
All right, you guys give Chase a follow. You can follow me at CleeRodB. Chase, any words of wisdom you'd like to close with?
Everyone, do your part. Wear a mask. Be kind to others. I know there's a ton of videos coming out right now of people kind of yelling at grocery store employees and whatnot. Like, I know everyone's kind of on edge, but, please just do your part so we can hopefully enjoy at least some form of sports this fall. Stay safe, everyone. Like I said, just wear a mask, do your part, keep your family safe, and, go Browns, I guess.
All right. I want to thank Chase for joining me tonight. This has been the Browns Blitz. We thank you all for listening, and we will catch you next time.